Hey y'all, how's it going? Welcome back to Seed to Play channel. And today we are talking about everything I'm growing in the fall garden. So, if you've never been here before, hi, my name is Brooke. I'm in Texas, zone 8B. It's very hot. We've had an extremely dry, hot spring slash summer. And so I'm very excited for the fall garden. So talking about the fall garden, we're going to go through all the fall type stuff that I'm growing, but just to kind of give you a preview of I'm trying something for the first time. And I'm actually doing spring summer garden 2.0. Now what that means is I've actually started tomatoes for the fall. So I will be planting those here in just a few weeks once they get to a good size that it's plantable. So we'll be doing that. And then I'm over summering, that's what I'm calling it. I'm over summering my eggplant and my peppers. And what that means is I'm really just hobbling them through the hottest part of the year where it's too hot for them to even make fruit, with the hope that once the temperature starts to really cool down, oh my god, what is that bug? Why are bugs like this? Go away. So my hope is once the weather really starts to cool down, that I will at least get like one good round of peppers and eggplant out of things, because here in Texas, zone 8B, we don't really start getting cold until December. Like, I don't even think we had a freeze last year until like January. It was pretty wild. So that's kind of the plan for spring summer garden 2.0. And then everything we're going to talk about today is like actual more traditionally fall things. Also, if you see any kind of smoke go in front of the lens, it's because I have incense burning. I have some sandalwood incense burning. I like to come out here in the mornings and just kind of burn incense and relax and just, you know, kind of come back to life. Also, I'm trying to actually get outside, even though it's hot and disgusting, because I don't know, I just need to be outside. I always also give this disclaimer. I have what I call a tale of two gardens. I have my backyard garden, which I just talked about is going to be peppers and eggplants and tomatoes, and then once those peter out, this garden will be gone, because this is a rental house and I have to put it back to some semblance of its original state. So this garden will be fully gone. However, I have actually now 2 plots at my community garden. So I have had one plot for about 3 years, and then the other plot I was sharing with somebody who has now moved, and so I've paid for both plots for the whole year, so I'm just going to plant out both for the fall. So this is going to look like a lot of stuff, but I also really believe in planting very bio-intensively. So I like to just cram a lot of stuff in there. So I've kind of organized these into 4 categories. So the things that I like to grow in the fall, and you're gonna notice that there's no lettuce in here. That's because it's actually still too hot in the fall in Texas to grow lettuce. It's gonna be really bitter. So I actually don't really start growing lettuce until like late fall, early winter. But I've organized these into greens, brassicas, root vegetables, and beans. So I'll put little chapter guys here so you can skip around if you want. I'll also put pictures up as I'm showing you the seeds and talking about them so you can see what they look like in their full glory. So let's start with greens. So I love greens. I love sauteed greens. I love putting them in the freezer. I like putting them in smoothies. I like putting them in soups. I like just braising them and having them with eggs. Dark leafy greens are really good for you. So we have Swiss chard. This is ruby red Swiss chard, and this is one that I like to cut up and put in soups or braise them. Not as good in smoothies. They're a little bit earthy for that. And then I love collard greens. These are really good in smoothies, by the way. If you don't like kale in your smoothies, then you should try collard greens. But again, love to braise them, love to put them in soups. So I have 2 different varieties. These are from Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. If you're in the South, they have really good varieties that just work so well here. So we have Alabama Blue, which I grew these last year, and they have this really beautiful like purpley bluish like veins and stalks. And then Green Glaze, which is gonna be like your very typical green collard green. And then for kales, I like kale, but I also have a hard time growing something that is like really affordable at the store to buy organic. So I grow specialty kale. I grow purple moon kale, just for funsies. And then I also grow lacinato or dinosaur kale. Again, just kind of for fun. Kale is also one that I will eat raw. Kale is really good in a salad with like more of a sweet dressing, and the key to making it not bitter is actually to rub kale in a little bit of olive oil and massage it and let it sit for a little bit before you actually eat it raw. And what that does is it kind of breaks down, the cell walls of kale are pretty tough, so when you massage it with the olive oil, it kind of breaks down some of that toughness and some of that bitterness, and it's really good. And then new to me this year that I'm growing is rosette bok choy. Top soy? I think that's how you say it. So this is a super healthy green to grow. And it also does really well in our area, and it's really frost tolerant? Very cold tolerant, withstands temperatures down to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Can be harvested even when there's snow on the ground. So this will be more of like a late fall situation, but I'm excited to grow this. We've been doing a lot more different places in Asia cooking, and a lot of Indian cooking, basically a lot of cultures that have rice-based dishes, because I have celiac, and so I can't have a lot of dishes that are like pasta-based or bread-based, stuff like that. So we've been getting really into some other cultures, dishes that don't use flour as much and like don't use bread. So super excited for that. So that takes care of all of the greens, and really the approach that I've tried to take as I've gardened longer and longer is making sure that I'm growing stuff that we're actually going to eat. I've done this so many times where I've grown things and then I just don't eat them. So trying to do that while also like doing new things that are fun, right? To brassicas. So I am going to try and grow a couple cauliflowers this year. I saw some people at my community garden have a ton of success with it last year, and I do like cauliflower in like very specific instances. I make a really good roasted cauliflower that's like covered in all of this delicious sauce, and you roast it. I found that recipe when I was vegan. LOL. If you're vegan, that's cool. I was trying to be vegan so I could fix my digestive problems that had nothing to do with being vegan. So I'm pretty excited to grow cauliflower this year. I'm only growing a couple of them, nothing too crazy. I'm trying my hand at Brussels sprouts again. So we really love to eat Brussels sprouts. I have historically been terrible at growing Brussels sprouts. They're kind of hard to grow here. They take up a lot of space and they take a lot of freaking time. So it's one of those things where I've really questioned if it's worth it. It's one that I seem to go back to every year because I just like the challenge, but it is one that I struggle with. I'm going to be growing green sprouting Calabrese broccoli. This was from a seed exchange. We love broccoli. I like to freeze it. I like to use broccoli leaves to saute, and again, soup, stews, all that good stuff. I even like to use the broccoli stems to shred for like coleslaws and salads. So broccoli is one of those that like not only do we love like the actual head of broccoli, but it's so versatile for like the whole entire plant. And then in addition to the green sprouting Calabrese broccoli, I'll be growing the very traditional Waltham 29 broccoli. Really good, reliable broccoli variety. It's done really well for me in the past. I had like the best freaking broccoli year in 2020, and we went and spent 3 weeks in Florida with my boyfriend's family, and that was right when all the broccoli was ready, and so a bunch of my community garden members got to enjoy my broccoli, but I did not. So we're gonna try and actually plant some broccoli that we're gonna be able to eat this year. And then cabbages. So I'm trying my hand at cabbages this year. just to see how it goes. I've never really done cabbage before, so naturally I went all in really aggressively. However, the reason I wanted to do this was because I've really been enjoying eating cabbage-based salads for lunches. There's something about it that my body really does well with. So I'll be growing Brunswick cabbage, which is a pretty standard variety of cabbage. And then Red Rock Mammoth cabbage. So we got some red cabbage in there. Golden Acre cabbage, which is another pretty standard cabbage, and then Chinese cabbage. So the Chinese cabbage, I kind of want to make my own kimchi, and then with the other varieties of cabbages, I will likely eat them raw or put them in stir fries. And I think cabbage is another one too that you can go ahead and shred up, put in the freezer, and then just dump it into stir fries kind of as you go. So that takes care of all the brassicas I will be growing. Brassicas around here, especially in the early part of the fall because it's still so warm, you really have to spray them down with BT like a lot, because we do get those little cabbage worms, the little green guys that are super hard to see, and before you know it, they've like eaten up your cabbages like crazy. We also struggle with aphids right at the beginning, so those are two things you really have to watch out for with any of your brassicas here in Central Texas Zone 8B. Next is root vegetables. Now, last year, I wanted to go in hard on root vegetables. And I did. But what happened last year was my sister was getting married, I had all these things going on, and I was not as attentive as I needed to be with my community garden. So what happened was there was a bunch of volunteer zinnias that started growing, and I didn't pull them. And so all of my nice rows of like root vegetables, they got shaded out by all these volunteer zinnias. So I had like this wonderful flower field, which was glorious. But the actual vegetable crops that I wanted to grow didn't grow. Last year's fall garden was a little bit of a failure. I'm determined. This is my last gardening season in the community garden, and I'm very determined to like make it a really good season. So without further ado, let's talk about root vegetables. So this is purple kohlrabi, and kohlrabi is celery-ish. So you can use kohlrabi in recipes that you would traditionally use like a celery or a cabbage. It's just a really good roasted root vegetable. Again, stir fries, stews, all that good stuff. I did grow one last year and I was impatient and I did not wait for it to bulb up the way it should have. And I just got impatient and I snagged it out of the ground. Kind of embarrassing, but it's fine. So we're gonna take another stab at kohlrabi. Parsnips. So parsnips take a while to grow, but they're worth it because you can harvest them in like the snow. So I'm looking forward to parsnips. We don't get that much snow, but we do get freezing temperatures here. So these are really awesome to kind of sow them and tend to them, but know that they're not going to give you anything for like a while. But once they do, they're just a really sweet root vegetable. And I really like in the winter to do what I call like a Sunday roast, where I like do a pot roast or I roast a whole chicken and I do a bunch of root vegetables, and it's just like yummy and like really comforting and delicious. So super excited about parsnips. I'm gonna try these golden carrots. Again, I had a lot of community garden members who had a lot of success with carrots last year, and again, it takes a while for them to really mature and you need to make sure the soil is nice and loose, but man, I was just so impressed. And on that note, I have these Danvers carrot seeds as well. So I'll be growing the Danvers carrots, which is like your traditional like orange carrot, and then also the Uzbek golden carrots. So that's the plan for carrots. I am going to try and grow rutabagas again. I tried these last year. I got a couple of them, but they didn't seem like large enough. They were like really small. So I don't know what I did wrong there. I'm sure it was something. But we're going to take another try at rutabagas. Radishes is something I grow every year. These may or may not have made their way back from Europe. but it's fine. So here's the funny thing about radishes. Radishes get sweeter the colder it gets. However, they're one of my favorite fall crops to grow because they grow really fast. So here's what I find with the fall garden, okay? With the fall garden specifically, you plant all this stuff when it's really small, and then there is so much time, like for a head of broccoli. Like you start it in like July, and then you don't get a head of broccoli until like December or November, right? It takes a long time. So I like to mix in stuff like radishes, or we'll talk about all the varieties of beans. Those are much shorter windows that you're going to get a harvest, and you're actually going to get something out of your garden. That's not going to take so long. And it's good to kind of balance all those things. So radishes, I don't particularly love them raw, but I do love a roasted radish. Roasted radishes are super yummy. So I also love pickled radishes. Very good. I'm doing a beet blend. So I don't love beets. I would like to learn to love beets. So this is a bunch of different kinds of beets. So I think that'll kind of be a fun way to get myself familiar with them. I think there's also a few different like tips and tricks that you can do with beets to make them less earthy. Because the reason that they're earthy is it's called geosmin, and geosmin is actually the same chemical compound that is in the dirt when it rains. So you know when you walk outside after it rains and it like smells like rain, you're actually smelling geosmin, and it's the same thing as what beets smell like. So that's why when you eat beets, everybody says it tastes like dirt. It's because the chemical compound that they have in them is the same as like literal wet dirt. So I really want to learn to like beets. I think, like I said, there's some things you can do with them, so we're gonna give it a shot this fall. The other one I'm growing are touchstone gold beets. So golden beets, if you don't like beets, are a really good way to get into beets. And that's because they are really nice and sweet. So we're gonna do golden beets. Now here's the cool thing about beets. A lot of your root vegetables you don't wanna like start in trays because they're really sensitive to root disturbance. Beets you can actually do that with. So you can do what's called multi-sowing, where you plant beets in like a small container together, you put them in the ground, and then they'll actually still bulb up and they'll just push away from each other. And so I have beets started right now with everything else that I started in advance. And then what I'll do is I will actually succession sow them. So probably I would say like 2 weeks after I plant the ones that are pre-done, I'll go ahead and do another round of direct sown beets that will grow, just so you can get multiple harvests of beets, because a lot of this stuff you can actually succession sow a lot of this stuff that like heads up, like cabbages and broccoli and all that stuff, so you can get it at like varying times. And then the last thing that I'm growing are turnips. So these are just a very standard turnip. These are 7-top turnips. Same thing, root vegetables, roasted, super tasty. They're like about the size of a large radish. And that takes care of root vegetables. So the last category we're talking about today are beans. If you are a new gardener, or even if you are a veteran gardener, grow beans. Beans are the freaking easiest thing to grow. They are so rewarding. You can plant them all together. They're super easy to direct sow. I love growing beans. So I'm planning on doing green beans in my green stalk, which I need to put more dirt in this fall. So I'm gonna have some in the backyard, and then I'll have a bunch at the community garden, because they're just, like I said, they're like one of my favorite things to grow. They're also just really good for the soil. I had an awesome spring of green beans this year. So Blue Lake bush beans are a really super standard variety. They perform really well. Dragon's tongue bush beans, another favorite. My only beef with these is that once they get big, they're kind of hard to eat, so you really have to pick them when they're like a very optimal size. Contender bush beans are another favorite of mine, so these will also be grown. These burpee stringless have done really well for me. And then, as always, I think I might need to get more Royal Burgundy bush beans if I don't have them hiding somewhere. And so with green beans, you have two different kinds. You have your bush beans, which are going to grow in like a bush, and you can plant them pretty close to each other, and they kind of help hold each other up. Or you can plant pole beans. So I don't think I'm going to plant pole beans this year. I don't know, maybe I'll be feeling crazy, who knows. But pole beans are going to actually climb, right? Like a vining crop, like a cucumber would. So I have pole bean seeds. I haven't fully decided if I'm going to do anything with them yet, but I will definitely be growing bush beans, like bush beans every time. So that is pretty much everything I'm growing in the fall garden in terms of like traditional fall crops, and then we're gonna see how spring garden 2.0 does. So I hope this was helpful. It's good to be back. I'm excited for the fall, and what you can look forward to in the next couple of months is we're gonna be really focusing on soil health and doing a lot of amending. I think I spiritually owe it to not only my backyard garden but also my community garden to make both of their last seasons the best they can be, and they have given me so much, and I need to finish the journey with these gardens with the same tenacity that I started it. So that is what you can expect to see from me in the next couple of months before we plant all of this out. And I guess that's another important thing to talk about. Typically I try and plant this stuff out in early to mid-September. That's about when I start to plant this stuff. I like for it to be like 90 degrees. That's where I like for it to be. Right now we're like way over, we're like in the hundreds. It's gonna probably take until like early to mid-September for it to be nice. So next couple of months we're gonna focus on soil health, and then we'll get all this stuff planted out in the garden. Thanks so much for watching. Happy gardening. We'll see you next time.